The sky above Varco 7 burned. Captain Elias Voss crouched behind a crumbling wall, his rifle pressed against his shoulder. Around him, the remains of the 22nd Terran Battalion lay scattered. Men and women who had once been soldiers, reduced to hollow-eyed survivors clinging to the last scraps of defiance. Beyond the ruined buildings, Kazalvora gunships prowled the skies, their sleek, insectoid hulls gleaming in the dying light. The city had already fallen, and soon the enemy would come to finish what they started. Status report, Voss muttered into his comm. A crackling voice answered. We lost the South District. Civilians taken or slaughtered. No survivors. That was Lieutenant Riker, his second in command. The weight in his voice told Voss everything he needed to know. They weren't just losing. They had already lost. Voss clenched his jaw, scanning the rubble-strewn streets. The Excelvora extermination teams would arrive soon, sweeping through the ruins, leaving nothing alive. That was their way. No prisoners, no negotiations. Just cold, methodical eradication. A soldier beside him stirred, a young woman barely out of her teens. Her uniform was tattered, her face smeared with blood and dirt. Private Lynn. She clutched her rifle with shaking hands. Sir, are we really just waiting to die? Voss didn't answer immediately. He should have. He should have told her the truth, that their government had abandoned them, that reinforcements weren't coming, that surrender meant nothing because the Excelvora did not accept surrender. But saying it out loud would break them. Instead, he let out a slow breath. No, he said at last. We're not waiting to die. We're waiting to decide how we're going to fight. Lynn frowned. Fight. Against them. Sir, we're outnumbered 100 to 1. We have no air support, no ships, no orbital defenses. Yeah, Voss interrupted. And yet, we're still here. She fell silent. The others, dozens of survivors hiding in the ruins, listened, waiting for him to say something, anything, that would make this nightmare feel less hopeless. Before he could speak, Riker's voice crackled in again. Voss, I found something. Found what? Just get to my position. Now. Voss motioned for Lynn and a few others to follow. They moved quickly, weaving through collapsed buildings and burned-out vehicles. Every step was a risk. Zalvora drones patrolled the streets, their razor-thin appendages scanning for life signs. If they were caught, there would be no escape. They found Riker inside the remains of an old military bunker, half buried under rubble. He stood beside a flickering console, dusting off an ancient terminal that should have stopped functioning decades ago. A message played on the cracked display, its words raw, crackling with age, but carrying the weight of something forgotten. Voss leaned in, reading the words aloud. We do not kneel. We do not break. We fight until the stars burn cold. His heart pounded. This wasn't just a message. It was an oath. The words lingered in the air like an unbroken vow. Voss stared at the flickering console, his breath slow and steady. The recording was old. Centuries, maybe more. A relic from a time when humanity was not the fractured, desperate species it had become. He tapped a button, and the audio crackled again, a deep voice echoing through the ruined bunker. We do not kneel. We do not break. We fight until the stars burn cold. The weight of the words settled over him like a mantle. This was not the speech of some long-dead general, nor the desperate rallying cry of a losing battle. It was something more. It was a declaration, a reminder of what humanity had once been, and what it could be again. What the hell is this? Riker asked, his voice hushed, almost reverent. Voss didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to Lynn and the others who had followed him into the bunker. They were staring at the screen, their faces a mixture of confusion and something else, something flickering deep within their eyes. Hope. He clenched his fists. The 22nd Battalion had been abandoned. The Terran Dominion had surrendered. But these words, this oath, did not speak of surrender. They spoke of defiance, of war without end, of a species that did not go quietly into extinction. Voss turned to face his soldiers, his voice calm but firm. This isn't just a recording. It's a message, a promise, a reminder of who we are. Lynn swallowed hard. Sir, what does it matter? We're dying here. We don't have the weapons, the numbers, the ships. And yet Voss interrupted, his gaze locking onto hers. We are still here. Lynn flinched at his intensity. Around them, the other soldiers straightened, eyes sharpening. Humanity wasn't always like this, Voss continued, pacing the bunker. We weren't always the ones running, the ones begging for mercy. We were warriors. We carved our place among the stars with fire and blood. And somewhere along the way, we forgot that. He pointed at the flickering screen. But this is who we really are. The silence was thick. Lynn's fingers tightened around her rifle. So what are you saying, sir? I'm saying we don't die on our knees, Voss said. I'm saying we make the Salvora afraid of us. The soldiers exchanged glances. They had been on the brink of giving up, of accepting the inevitable. But something about the words on that ancient recording, something about the fire in Voss's voice, rekindled a spark they had long thought extinguished. Riker exhaled slowly. You're really serious about this? Voss met his gaze. Dead serious. A slow grin spread across Riker's face. Then I guess it's time we reminded the galaxy who the hell we are. And just like that, the last warriors of humanity prepared to stand. The night over Varco 7 was thick with smoke and death. The Exalvora patrolled the ruins in tight formations, their insectoid figures moving with eerie precision. They weren't searching for survivors. No, the slaughter was already assumed. They were here to erase the last remnants of resistance. They had no idea what was coming. Voss crouched in the rubble of a collapsed building, his hand steady on his rifle. Around him, his soldiers, no, his warriors, waited in silence. The flickering words of the forgotten oath still burned in their minds, their breaths slow, measured. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was about something deeper, something primal. Riker knelt beside him, eyes locked on the approaching enemy patrol. 5 drones, 3 heavies. If they call reinforcements, we're screwed. Voss smirked. Then let's make sure they don't. A single sharp movement of his hand, and his squad sprang into action. Lynn moved first, darting across the ruined street with practiced speed. She set a crude but effective trap, a plasma charge buried under loose rubble. The moment she was back in cover, Voss gave the signal. The patrol moved closer, their elongated heads sweeping from side to side, scanning for heat signatures. The lead drone clicked something in its alien tongue, unaware that its last mistake had already been made. Then, detonation. The explosion ripped through the street, sending 2 drones flying in pieces. The moment the flames lit up the darkness, Voss and his warriors struck. Riker fired first, his rifle spitting white-hot plasma. The Exalvora heavy staggered as the shot caught it in the neck, its armored plates cracking. Lynn followed up with a precise burst to another drone's sensor cluster, sending it screeching to the ground. Voss moved fast, weaving through the chaos. His rifle barked twice, dropping a soldier before it could react. Another Exalvora turned, its wrist blades snapping open, but Voss was faster. He slammed his knife into the alien's throat, twisting hard. The creature gurgled, its violet blood spraying across his armor. The last enemy standing shrieked, attempting to activate a distress beacon. Riker saw it first. No, you don't. He fired, the shot blasting through the beacon before it could send a signal. The final Exalvora hesitated, realizing too late that they had lost. It turned to flee, only to be caught in Lynn's sights. A single shot rang out. The alien crumpled, twitching once before going still. Silence. Voss exhaled, stepping over the bodies. His warriors looked at him, adrenaline still high, waiting for orders. He looked at the dead Exalvora, then at his people, and grinned. They bleed, he said. That means they can die. Riker chuckled darkly. What's next, Captain? Voss glanced at the alien weapons they had just acquired, then at the distant glow of an enemy outpost. Now, we take the fight to them. The Exalvora outpost loomed in the distance, its cold, insectoid structures bathed in the eerie blue glow of alien energy fields. From their position in the ruins, Voss and his warriors watched as patrols moved methodically along the perimeter. The enemy still believed humanity was broken, scattered. That belief was about to be shattered. Voss knelt beside Lin and Riker, his voice low but firm. We hit them fast. We hit them hard. No drawn-out fights. Get in, take everything we can use, and leave nothing standing. Understood. Riker grinned. Sounds like a plan. Lin, still gripping her newly acquired Salvora rifle, nodded. The fire in her eyes was different now. Before, she had been a soldier waiting to die. Now she was a warrior with a purpose. Voss checked his stolen weapon. Sleek, alien, but deadly. Let's remind them why humans were once feared. With that, they moved. The first attack. The sentries never saw them coming. Lin took the first shot, her plasma round slicing through the skull of a Jalvora guard. The alien's body hit the ground with a dull thud. Before the others could react, Riker tossed a makeshift explosive, an old Terran grenade rigged with alien tech, into a cluster of enemies near the entrance. The explosion tore through the outpost's gate, sending Xalvora warriors sprawling. The moment the blast faded, Voss and his squad charged. Gunfire erupted in the corridors. Voss moved like a ghost through the dimly lit halls, his rifle spitting death. The Exalvora fought back, but they weren't prepared for this, weren't prepared for humans who fought with the fury of a species that refused to die. Lin kicked down a door, finding a storage room filled with Salvora weapons. Jackpot. Riker laughed as he grabbed a sleek, heavy rifle. Oh, these bastards are gonna regret leaving this unguarded. Voss activated his comm. Load everything you can carry. We're not just raiding this place. We're arming a war. The message that changed everything. In the command center, a terrified Salvora officer tried to send a distress call, but Voss put a bullet through the console before he could finish. The alien shrieked in frustration, then in pain as Riker slammed the butt of his rifle into its face. Voss turned to a terminal, scrolling through enemy communications. Then he found something interesting. A list of human colonies, once thought to be wiped out, but encrypted messages suggested survivors. Voss grinned. We're not alone. Riker peered over his shoulder. Think they're still fighting. They will be, Voss said, once they hear the oath. He activated a wideband transmission. The ancient words echoed through space, carried on every stolen frequency. We do not kneel. We do not break. We fight until the stars burn cold. Somewhere in the dark, humanity listened, and the fire of resistance spread. The Exalvora's response came faster than expected. An hour after the outpost raid, the sky above Varco 7 roared with the arrival of enemy warships. Their sleek insectoid hulls cast shadows over the ruins as they descended, sending out fresh waves of extermination squads. The Exalvora did not tolerate defiance. But for the first time in years, humanity wasn't running. Voss stood atop the remnants of a collapsed tower, scanning the horizon through stolen Xalvora optics. Enemy forces were converging, fast, disciplined, overwhelming in number. His warriors were outgunned, outmatched, and surrounded. But none of that mattered anymore. Because now, they had something stronger than firepower. They had purpose. Behind him, Lin and Riker finished rigging the explosives around the stolen Salvora weapons crates. Charges set. Lin reported, her voice steady. No more fear. No more hesitation. Then let's make this hurt, Voss said, locking his rifle's power cell into place. A deep, resonant hum filled the air as Calvora gunships hovered above the ruins, their weapons spinning up to fire. From their vantage point, the alien commanders must have believed this would be a simple execution. Voss smiled. Light 'em up. The battle begins. The first explosion was blinding. The moment the Exalvora squads moved in, Lin triggered the detonators. The stolen weapons cache erupted into a brilliant firestorm, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Alien warriors were thrown like ragdolls, their exoskeletons cracking from the impact. Then, the real fight began. Voss and his warriors struck from the shadows, using the chaos to their advantage. They moved like predators, ducking through crumbling buildings, striking with precision. Riker lay down covering fire, his stolen Exalvora rifle humming with deadly energy. Lin moved like a ghost, picking off enemy officers with ruthless efficiency. The Exalvora fought back, their plasma rifles searing through the ruins, but something was different. Something they hadn't encountered in years. Humans who weren't afraid to die. The battle was brutal. Street by street, ruin by ruin, Voss's warriors turned the city into a killing ground. They used every dirty trick, every ambush tactic, every ounce of human ingenuity. The Exalvora relied on their superior numbers, but Voss and his soldiers relied on something far more dangerous. Desperation turned to fury. The turning point. The Exalvora commander, its carapace adorned with shimmering battle sigils, shrieked an order in its alien tongue. The remaining squads regrouped, attempting to encircle the human fighters. A calculated, tactical maneuver. Voss saw it coming. He tapped his comm. Riker, now. On cue, a stolen Xalvora walker, commandeered just minutes before, lurched to life within the rubble. Riker grinned from the cockpit, aiming its plasma cannons. The first shot annihilated the enemy formation. The Exalvora, so sure of their victory, faltered. The impossible was happening. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. The fires of battle still burned in the ruins of Varco 7, but the Exalvora retreat had come at a cost. Voss stood in the wreckage of what had once been a command center, watching as Lin and the others scavenged supplies from the fallen enemy. Their victory had been undeniable, but it wouldn't last. The Exalvora never accepted failure. They would return, stronger, angrier, and in greater numbers. "We need to move," Riker said, stepping over a smoldering alien corpse. "They won't make the same mistakes twice." Voss nodded. "Agreed. Gather what we can. We're leaving before." A crackling transmission interrupted him. The signal was human, but the voice carried none of the fire that had ignited the resistance. It was cold, calculating. "This is Administrator Kell of the Varcos Compliance Authority. Lay down your weapons and surrender. This rebellion is over." Voss froze. His fingers curled into fists. "What the hell?" Lin muttered. "Compliance Authority. I thought they were wiped out when the Dominion fell." "Guess not," Riker said bitterly. "Cockroaches always survive." Voss's jaw tightened. The Compliance Authority had been formed in the final days of the war. Humans who had chosen survival over resistance, selling out their own people to the Exalvora in exchange for power. And now, they had come to betray the last warriors of humanity. ### betrayal in the shadows. A rumble in the distance signaled incoming forces. Not Exalvora. Human troops, armored and well-equipped, moving with precision. Compliance enforcers. Traitors. "They knew we were here," Riker growled. Voss exhaled slowly, forcing down the rage boiling in his chest. "Doesn't matter how they found us. We deal with them like we deal with the rest." Lin shook her head. "They're human. We can't just." "They're not human," Voss snapped. "Not anymore." Silence. Then Kell's voice returned over the comm. "Captain Voss, you and your men are guilty of inciting insurrection against the established order. Surrender now, and you will be spared." Riker laughed dryly. "Oh yeah? And what's the reward? A quick death, or do we get the honor of watching you sell us to the bugs?" A pause. Then Kell spoke again. Humanity lost the war. Voss. The Dominion is gone. The fight is over. All you're doing is ensuring more of our people die. Voss's grip on his rifle tightened. He had no words for men like Kell, men who had chosen the leash instead of the blade. You want to beg for scraps at an alien's table, Voss growled. Go ahead, but we do not kneel. A sigh crackled through the comm. So be it. The traitors attacked. ###. The Battle of the Betrayed. Gunfire erupted from the ruins as compliance enforcers stormed the battlefield. But they had underestimated one thing. Voss and his warriors weren't just fighting an enemy. They were fighting for humanity itself. The first shot rang out, and chaos followed. Voss dove behind a collapsed wall as enemy fire tore through the ruins. The compliance enforcers advanced in tight formations, moving with the precision of soldiers who had been trained, not to fight for humanity, but to subjugate it. Their sleek armor and advanced weaponry marked them as traitors who had lived comfortably under Xalvora rule. They had sided with the enemy. They had chosen servitude over defiance. And for that, they would burn. Lynn fired first, her stolen Xalvora rifle punching through an enforcer's helmet. The soldier dropped, his body twitching as blue sparks crackled from his armor. They're pushing hard, Riker shouted, taking cover behind a shattered vehicle. We can't hold them here. Voss gritted his teeth. He already knew that. The compliance forces had the numbers, the tech, and the resources. His warriors had nothing but stolen weapons and sheer willpower. If they tried to hold their ground, they'd be overrun. But holding ground wasn't the plan. He tapped his comm. Squads 2 and 3, status. A voice crackled back. Charges set. Ready on your mark. Voss smirked. The enemy thought they were pressing an advantage. In reality, they were walking straight into a trap. Kell, he called out, switching to the open channel. Still think we're the ones who lost the war. A pause. Then Kell's voice came through, calm and arrogant. You're surrounded, Voss. Whatever delusions you have about victory, they end here. Voss grinned. Yeah. Then explain this. He raised his fist and dropped it. The fires of defiance. The ground beneath the compliance enforcers erupted. Explosions ripped through the ruins, engulfing the advancing troops in fire and debris. Screams filled the air as the traitors were thrown like ragdolls, their armor cracking under the force. Smoke and dust swallowed the battlefield. And then, like wolves striking wounded prey, Voss's warriors attacked. Lynn sprinted through the chaos, her rifle barking with deadly precision. Riker led a flanking squad, cutting through the dazed enemy forces like a blade through soft flesh. Voss himself waded into the fray, his knife finding the gaps in compliance armor, his stolen Xalvora rifle carving a path of destruction. The traitors panicked. The warriors did not. Within minutes, the compliance attack collapsed. Survivors scrambled to retreat, their perfect formations shattered by the raw fury of human resistance. Kell's last stand. Voss found Kell in the wreckage of a fallen gunship. The administrator was wounded, his pristine armor scorched, his weapon shaking in his hands. Voss stepped forward, his own rifle aimed directly at the traitor's head. You sold us out. Kell coughed, glaring. I saved humanity. Voss shook his head. No, you just delayed its extinction. He pulled the trigger. As Kell's body hit the ground, Voss turned to his warriors. We've won this fight, but the real war is just beginning. And humanity's warriors. They were ready. The battlefield was silent except for the crackling flames and the distant hum of Xalvora ships prowling the skies. The compliance forces were broken, their leader dead. But Voss knew this victory was temporary. The real war was far from over. Lynn wiped blood and sweat from her face, exhaling shakily. They'll send more, she muttered. The Xalvora won't let this slide. They don't have a choice, Riker said, tossing aside his depleted rifle. We're past the point of begging for mercy. Now we make them afraid. Voss nodded, his eyes scanning the wreckage. The enemy had left behind supplies, weapons, armor, even working vehicles. More than that, they had left behind technology. And technology could be turned against them. He knelt beside a fallen compliance officer, yanking a data pad from the corpse's belt. A quick scan revealed its contents: battle reports, encrypted transmissions, and something far more valuable. A location: a Xalvora command hub, hidden beneath the surface of Varco 7. His jaw tightened. "We're not done here." Lin frowned. "Sir." Voss held up the pad. "This war doesn't end with skirmishes. It ends when we take something from them. Something they can't afford to lose." Riker peered over his shoulder, eyes widening as he read the coordinates. "That's a central relay station." "Exactly," Voss said. "If we take it out, we cut off their ability to coordinate forces across this sector. No reinforcements, no orders, just chaos." Lin hesitated. "It's a suicide mission." Voss's grin was sharp. "Only if we fail." Preparing for war. The warriors of humanity moved quickly, scavenging everything useful from the battlefield. Compliance weapons were repurposed, stolen Xalvora vehicles rigged for human hands. What had been a ragtag band of survivors was now something more, something dangerous. A resistance. Voss stood before them, his voice steady. "For too long, we fought like cornered animals, striking only when we had no choice. That ends now. We're not just surviving. We're hunting." The warriors nodded, fire burning in their eyes. Riker slammed a fresh power cell into his rifle. "Then let's hit them where it hurts." Lin exhaled, gripping her weapon tighter. "We take the relay. We take control." Voss turned toward the horizon. The Xalvora command hub lay hidden beneath the ruined earth, protected by heavy fortifications. But it didn't matter. The forgotten oath had been remembered. And soon, the galaxy would know. Humanity was no longer defeated. It was rising. The Xalvora command hub loomed ahead, buried beneath the ruined landscape of Varco 7. Towering defense turrets jutted from the earth like jagged spines, scanning the wasteland with eerie precision. Shields shimmered faintly, wrapping the facility in an impenetrable cocoon of energy. To any sane person, attacking the stronghold was suicide. Voss and his warriors weren't sane. They were desperate. They were angry. They were human. From their hidden position in the ruins, Lin adjusted the scope of her rifle. "Looks bad," she muttered. "Multiple heavy turrets, automated sentry drones, and a full garrison inside." Riker exhaled. "So, what's the play, Captain?" "Walk up to the front door and ask nicely." Voss smirked. "Not quite." He tapped his stolen data pad. "Compliance tech has its uses. This encryption gave us more than just a location. It gave us a way in." He brought up a holographic display, showing a subterranean tunnel system beneath the command hub. Maintenance tunnels. Old Dominion infrastructure, repurposed by the Xalvora. "We slip in under their noses, plant charges in their power core, and walk out before they realize they're dead." Lin frowned. "And if they do realize?" Voss's grin was sharp. "Then we give them a fight they'll never forget." The infiltration. Under cover of darkness, the warriors moved. Navigating through the ruins, they reached a rusted access hatch concealed beneath the rubble of an old Dominion outpost. With a few quick hacks, the compliance encryption broke apart, and the door groaned open. Voss led the way, descending into the tunnels, his rifle at the ready. The air was thick with the scent of damp metal and decay. Old Dominion symbols still lined the walls, covered in dust, forgotten remnants of a fallen empire. But Voss refused to believe humanity was finished. Not yet. Not ever. The team moved in near silence, passing under the enemy's feet as Xalvora patrols unknowingly walked above them. Every step brought them closer to the facility's core, the beating heart of the Xalvora's communications network in this sector. Riker tapped Voss on the shoulder. "Heat signatures ahead. Looks like we're not the only ones down here." Lin raised her rifle. "A Xalvora." Voss checked his scanner. No, something else. The shadows shifted. Then, from the darkness, voices, human voices. The forgotten fighters. A figure emerged, clad in battered armor, rifle raised. His face was scared, his eyes wary but burning with recognition. "You're the ones who sent the message," he said. His voice was hoarse, like someone who had spent too many years screaming into the void. Voss lowered his rifle. "You heard the oath." A man's lips curled into a grim smile. "We never forgot it." Behind him, dozens of survivors stepped forward, weapons in hand. Voss grinned. Humanity wasn't just rising. It was assembling an army. The warriors of humanity stood face to face, those who had carried the forgotten oath and those who had never abandoned it. The scared leader, a man named Callan, sized up Voss with sharp, assessing eyes. "We thought we were the last ones left," he admitted. "For years, we fought in the dark, waiting for a sign." Voss smirked. "You got one." Callan nodded. "And we're ready to make them pay." The final strike. With fresh fighters, the plan shifted from sabotage to annihilation. Instead of a quiet infiltration, they would strike with overwhelming force, crippling the Exalvora command hub and delivering a blow they couldn't ignore. Inside the tunnels, explosives were rigged to key structural points. Lynn and Callan's team took the eastern approach, setting traps to funnel Exalvora forces into kill zones. Riker and the others prepared to storm the central reactor. Voss led the charge. The moment they breached the inner facility, alarms blared. The Exalvora descended like a tidal wave, skittering drones, towering warriors, and elite commanders wielding plasma blades. But the humans didn't falter. They fought like demons, their rifles singing, their blades carving through alien flesh. The Exalvora had spent years believing humanity was broken, weak. But as their warriors fell to human defiance, they realized the truth. Humanity wasn't dying. It was evolving. The breaking point. Deep in the reactor core, Riker and his team worked furiously to set the final charges. "Almost there," he grunted, dodging a swipe from a Exalvora warrior. He fired a point-blank shot into the alien's face, then slammed the detonator into place. "Done," he shouted. Voss, locked in a brutal melee with a towering Exalvora commander, heard the call. He ducked under a vicious strike, twisted, and drove his knife into the alien's throat. Purple blood sprayed across his armor. He activated his comm. "All units, fall back." The warriors of humanity disengage, retreating through the tunnels as explosions rocked the facility. The reactor, now overloaded, screamed with unstable energy. As they emerged from the ruins, the Exalvora command hub collapsed in on itself. Fire and debris shot into the sky, turning night into a blazing inferno. Voss stood with his warriors, watching the destruction. Riker let out a breathless laugh. "Now that is how you send a message." Callan crossed his arms. "They'll come for us, with everything they have." Voss wiped blood from his face. "Good." He turned to his people, the survivors, the warriors, the future. They wanted humanity to kneel. Instead, they'll learn the truth. Lynn nodded. "We are not broken." Riker grinned. "We do not yield." Callan smirked. "We fight until the stars burn cold." The forgotten oath was no longer forgotten. It was a war cry, and the galaxy would soon tremble before the return of humanity's warriors.